Hello everybody and welcome to another RCT2 review. Today we are looking at Caer Hywel by Ottersalad, with apologies to any Welsh folks who watch me butcher that name. So, before we jump into this, I did want to make a quick plug. This video is posted on October 2nd, and we are going to be doing our next Angel's Amusement Academy coaster building stream tomorrow, Saturday, October 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow's theme is Under the Rails. So we're looking at inverted, suspended, and flying coasters of all varieties. So it should be a pretty fun stream. You can check me out at twitch.com/Andrelzik, which you'll find the link in any of the playlist YouTube channel for Andrelzik Amusement Academy. So just check that out on my channel to find your way there. Anyway, I hope to see you there. But back to this park, I will again butcher the name. It is Caer Hywel, Caerhywel. And this is a kind of Welsh theme park, also based on the show Hinterland. Like I said, by Ottersalad on New Element. This got a gold award over there and is a great no custom scenery objects park. So let's dive on in and take a look at what we have. We have this sort of castle heavy, nice atmosphere park where I feel like he's done a very nice job with negative space as well as just the regular scenery that's filling in everything throughout. I really like this kind of landscaping where there's not an overabundance of trees where you don't just cover the whole darn thing. There's a lot of just open space, open landscape, and I think he's done a very nice job here. But, architecture itself is no slouch. It's good look throughout, so I really like this opening area. Kind of feels like some of the more old school parks of the day. We have our 3D cinema here used as a nice dome on top, and just the castle scenery throughout on the space. Kind of cool that before you really even get into the park, you have this nice little scrambler ride here, and then just these kind of walls on either side kind of hemming you in before you get into the park proper and can really explore what there is to see. And you come right out into this little ice cream shop here where you have the three stacks with the gumdrops, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, which I appreciate. It's kind of a neat look. Not necessarily the best kind of opening view, I suppose, where you're framing something out there. It almost kind of feels like the park grew over time, perhaps, but you do have this nice splash boats ride here, the deluge looming over top of everything there. I really like this little detail here with the fountain, the river rapids ride. It's used for the water portion, and then the hedge maze around the outside of it. I think that looks really nice. It's a good look to me. And then we also have the sky ride here going up and across the park, which we'll pick up a little bit later as we go along. Here again is that splash boats ride, so not much to it, kind of a standard layout, but nicely done. Nice little simple station, and of course you have to have your bridge across the splash. I think that's kind of a prerequisite for any of these types of rides. Really liking the maze here used for the fencing on either side to the stables here, where you can see the little horse drinking water out of the little log flume trough. Jumping through to this next area here, passing underneath this little kind of castle wall, you've got this nice use of the standard in-game little huts, and then also the standard in-game scenery pieces or ride and stalls. So you've got the little lemonade here on this. It actually blends pretty well in there. Kind of looks like a little maybe just a little shop on the pathway, but doesn't look out of place. Same with these cute little stalls here made of the monorail track. So our first coaster right here kind of looms above. So this is Dragon Slayer, and this is a nod to Pulsix, who has a 1% credit on this, along with Mamarias and G-Force. So this is a pretty nice little layout. It's not necessarily following a CCI or GCI or one of those sorts of rides, but kind of feels like a reasonably realistic wooden coaster. A pretty nice size lift here, sort of looming over top of everything with this great structure coming out of it, and then this big drop down that you would be able to see from the path here across from this kind of great fountain. I do like these little overhang pieces here with the gravestone elements holding those up, and then just some of the little other architectural detailing here with the coaster track. Let's take a watch of this ride. It is quite nice. We'll speed this up a little bit. We got this nice big first drop here into the curved base as we go up, and then we have the second drop. Be a little bit fast there perhaps, but we rocket over this hill, get a lot of airtime there. Making all right-hand turns at the beginning, sort of like a New Texas Giant or a Mean Streak type layout almost. This nice helix set up there around the pathway, which I really like. The pathway wraps around more than a quarter of it, which is a great view from the whole thing. In the path, or the helix is sort of tilted down towards the pathway itself, which I think is very nicely done. And then to this final weave S-bend here through the queue line itself, kind of as a nice finisher to the ride itself. So cutting up underneath and cutting through the ride is this area over here. Let me spin around again. That's a little bit of sort of an odd placement of an attraction. So it's the harbor area, I suppose, and we've got a couple of these little boats and everything. So your boats on the dock, and not a whole lot more to it. It almost looks like, and you can kind of guess this by the queue line elements here, is the same. Almost looks like this is a separate entrance if you arrive by, say, a ferry boat from the a hotel or something like that. So there's not actually an attraction up here, and that kind of explains why it sort of sits away from the other one. But I do like the way this castle sits along the ridgeline of this mountainside here. I think that's a really nice way to bring in the theme a little bit. Pretty simply, keep it nice and low, and then also have this great ridge here, again with this minimalistic landscaping, but it really blocks out the view of the park until you get into the park proper. So let's continue up this way, and we're going to hit this next coaster here, or well, pseudo coaster, I suppose. So this is a nice little powered coaster. Looks like a mock powered coaster. Again, simple station, but nicely put together. A couple of laps on the ride. Most of the powered coasters in the world are sort of simple like this. Pretty, a couple of helixes and a few little hills here and there. I think is nicely done. Looks like you get 2 laps for your trouble, so that's kind of a nice little look. Here's a cool ride. So this is the Dragon Air, and you have this water wheel on the side that powers the ride itself, and you can see all the little mechanisms and everything here as part of the theming. I think that's a nice little custom ride there. It would be nice to see the cars maybe spaced out a little bit, or you could also angle this with the helix pieces perhaps, but for what it is, I think it is a very nice little ride. Go through this next tower gate as we cross the bridge here into our next zone. So there's 2 little things here. So we're going to jump over to this side first, where we have our little kids ride, Truffle Hunt. I'm already a fan of this because it is a ride type that you don't see used terribly often. This is the Steeplechase Ride, and it's done really well. It's put up around these themed mushrooms, these gigantic mushroom pieces, and kind of works its way around. Doesn't try and do too much. You can't really do too much with this kind of a ride, but I think what's here is done very nicely. Just sort of cruise around above the tree line and have a couple of these little hills here at the end as it turns in back to the station. A couple little gathering seating areas here with this nice stacked block wall. The green is a little bit of a bold choice. I'm really not a huge fan of this green as far as the regular RCT2 palette goes. Not my favorite, but it just stands out a little much, I think, as far as I'm concerned. It's maybe a little bit saturated. Here we've got this great little ride here, Truffle Trucks, and it looks like it might be stuck up a little bit. Aha, waiting for full load. We can send a couple around, but we've got a couple of crossovers and some different theming pieces here, a little mine area on this side. But a really nice way to integrate this kind of a ride underneath of the coaster, then as well as this little slide here as well. You can kind of see it's a nice cluster of family kids type rides all in one spot. which is a great foil to the larger rides here. So this is the next coaster we're going to get to. This is Wyvern. And we've got a bit of a change in our overall theming a little bit. We kind of moved from the brown castle to more of the gray castle. So still castle medieval type theming, but a different look overall perhaps. Really cool queue line here going up underneath of these archways and then up onto the mountainside as well. Just kind of walking through that side, and then over on this side you can kind of see where the queue pops out, goes around and then back in while the coaster goes up underneath of it. We're going to wait for the next train to go so then we can go follow it along. I'll point out this little building too that I kind of like just for a few reasons. I like the little open spaces in the bottom, so this kind of whole bottom floor is opened up, and then we also have the little barrels here supporting these window planters, which I quite like. And then throughout all the windows, I'm sure you've noticed as we've been going along, have this yellow glass behind it, which is pretty nice. Alrighty. So here we are on what I can only assume to be a B&M flying coaster. As we go up the lift hill, which is right alongside the landscape, but at the top you kind of find yourself up and over this waterfall, which is a really cool start as you dive down off this waterfall with this big twist. And come back up and do our half roll into our flying cobra roll of sorts. I see this more often now on a lot of people's attractions in RCT. Not maybe my favorite element. It's a little bit odd, but not out of the realm of possibility by any means. Perhaps a little bit slow through the elements, but not too bad. This one may be a little bit... That's about right, I feel. But nice flowing layout here. Helix up and over, and then finally one more helix around this building before it dives back into the station here. I like that a lot of these buildings are built up around the coaster. I think it looks pretty nice overall. And then these sunk brick walls here, I think look very nice also. Give that nice clean white line along the whole thing. I mean, in general, the landscaping in this park is a strength as far as I'm concerned. Like I said earlier, a little bit slow here. A little bit, but not terrible. Alright, well, let's keep rolling. As we go through and cross this next bridge, we have this little village of sorts. And we can kind of circle back to the middle here. Let's see what the best way to do this would be. Yeah, so what we'll do is circle back through here to the middle, and we have our little train ride, Merlin's Railroad, which I really like. I love these sort of custom tracked rides that are not necessarily something that you're going to automatically recognize as from a real park or a real thing. It's just sort of a custom, fun little attraction. So you have this whole train ride with all these little targets all around, lots of great theming. You have this little guard here walking back and forth. It just seems like a fun attraction, and the same can be said across the way here for the car ride, which uses the little suspended monorail or the suspended single rail coaster for the track. So I think that's quite nice between both of these. And then you also have the little castle here, which are the cotton candy stall, which I think is fun. And then that brings us over to this side, which we'll get back to in a little bit. Over here we have a nice custom swinging ship ride, so very well put together, especially with the no custom scenery pieces. This is, I've said before in a lot of my videos, but I continue to be impressed by no custom scenery parks because it's not my strength and it's not something that I really enjoy doing. But for the people who can do it and can do it well, it certainly has my respect because it's a pretty challenging thing to make look good. And I think this one is clean and simple. It's not really pretentious in any way, but it kind of gets the job done and looks good while doing it. So I do think that is well done. Nice little add here to the bumper boat type ride around this almost a lazy river of sorts, but it has this pretty cool observation tower. There is some scenery elements to it, but the big coaster here in the space is this guy. This is Warhammer, and the idea is that this is an SNS thrust air coaster if they had larger layouts, and actually it's a pretty nice layout. The other thing worth looking at, and I don't know if you caught it while I was talking, is the bumper boat goes through here. When it hits the whirlpool, it does spin around, so maybe we'll catch that in a minute. Here's the train coming along. This is another one of those coasters that you don't see very often, so I definitely appreciate the design here. Pretty appropriate height spike. I think anything larger than that makes it look a little bit stupid. There's a nice airtime hill up and over. Watch the boat around there. That's cool. And then finally one more airtime hill. So actually a pretty nice little layout, pretty simple. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going any longer than this for SNS thrust coasters. I think this is pretty appropriate for a Tennessee version of that kind of a ride. But I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I think it looks really nice. Again, changing a little bit of the scenery. We've changed the path for sure into this more brown path, and now we're looking at a little bit more wood, a little bit more brick, and some corrugated metal roofing throughout. So let's continue on and back into this space. We have another little cut-through path that goes through this whole area, and this gets us to Dragon. Kind of a simply named coaster. Is a nice little Schwarzkopf design. Pretty unique first drop here, which I like. It's got this little dip, as is customary with a lot of Schwarzkopf coasters, like Mindbender and Over Georgia. And you have this nice shallow approach into loop number 1 as we wrap around and set up for loop number 2. A little bit awkward here, perhaps, in the layout, but not out of the question strange. So I think it works pretty well. Diving under that brake run and then up and over helix, down and under, little bridge, and then a final helix up into the brakes. Not too bad, you know, it's a nice little flowing layout. I like the interlocking loops. I think they're set nicely there because you're going to see them from almost eye level with the queue, how it's raised up a little bit, and then you have this whole stretch of pathway here where this is the giant focal point. I think that's really well done as far as just overall views go for rides like this. Again, using the terrain on the lift hill, which is kind of neat, where you're right alongside the hillside and then all of a sudden it pulls away and you're suddenly high up off the ground. Here also is our landing point for the Sky Ride, and then the carousel is here underneath this nice little custom structure. We back out for a second too. We can see this little food area here next to this guy, which I really like. So this is Lost Coaster of Superstition. Have to wonder if it was meant to be Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain like the Indiana Beach one, and we just ran out of space, but perhaps a question that Otter can answer himself. But I really like this. It's sort of a fun fantasy-ish coaster. For those of you who don't know Lost Coaster of Superstition Mountain, it is a CCI coaster at Indiana Beach in Indiana, of course. That was a coaster converted from a former little powered dark ride. So it's sort of a weird, awkward layout with a lot of just little tiny dips and corners. This is definitely more coaster-like, especially with those little outward banked elements and things like that. But it's kind of a fun little filler ride almost that adds some interest and some just uniqueness beyond, say, a standard figure-8 family coaster or something. So definitely pretty cool. I like that. I like how it pops up through this little castle element here. So if we go around the other side, we get to our wooden coaster over here. So this is Gelistor. I'm saying it wrong. This is more of a GCI looking coaster as far as the first drop and some of these elements go. Kind of falls away from GCI here a little bit towards the end, and there's maybe a little bit of flow issues here, I suppose, but the coaster itself is not too bad, and again, set up really nicely in the landscape itself. We have some more of this scenery that really serves a purpose of just being scenery for the ride, which is not a bad thing, especially in a park like this where it's really a semi-realistic type park. And it sits nicely as a way to kind of boost the theming of the space while not really being a functional building of any sort. So cool to see. Nice little layout. I definitely think there was some improvements that could be made. Notably, you have some of these sort of potentially awkward corners. You curve a little bit, drop a little bit, then curve again the other direction, then a little hill, and then some more curves in the same direction. So not too bad, but definitely some things that can be adjusted to make it look a little bit better. But again, nicely done for this area. Nice, simple, understood station. I love these little archway tower things that go across the pathway. I think those look quite nice too. So over to this side, we get to another B&M. This is a B&M inverted coaster. Kind of surrounded by path. I think in general, we run into the issue where we have ride with a circle of path, which I tend to want to avoid. Not necessarily all the cases here, but there are definitely a lot of loops of pathway that could probably be simplified out, so you might consider taking, say, this one out in favor of some of these buildings getting moved over to here, and then just kind of leaving this as a whole. A couple neat things as we wait for the train. We've got this little sheep area here in this pasture. A lot of just nice little buildings, kind of simple facades that don't necessarily have stuff in them. Here's a donut shop and some other things like that, which I do appreciate. There we go. Grab our coaster here. So this is something I can't pronounce, so I will leave you up to figure that one yourself. But let's take a look. So this is a G-Force built layout. Nice little pre-drop here into a dive and an Immelman starter, which I always like, something that doesn't necessarily start with a loop. Nice drop out of that into a 0G roll. A little bit slow through there, not too bad though. Dive under the pathway with another loop. Curve here into the Cobra roll, very Pyrenees-esque. Definitely too slow through the Cobra roll. Definitely has some issues there. And very Pyrenees-esque, we're going to have our helix up through and into the mid-course brake run. Unfortunately, this is kind of where it comes apart, because we're traveling at 6 miles per hour, 5 miles per hour now. Crawling through that mid-course brake run, so killing the flow, killing the pace. If it had, 10 more miles an hour, it would be, a great looking layout, but unfortunately the pacing kind of kills this one a little bit. And a nice little meandering ending point. I like these offset corkscrews from each other that are still sort of set in line to each other. I think that's quite nice. And then into the brake run here. So pretty nice overall. It's just somewhat a shame that the pacing sort of kills the ride. So nice queue line through here. Nice little covers. Kind of gotten away from using the regular queue as we've seen on some of the other bits like the flying coaster over here. So we're definitely looking at more pathway here, but no real issues there. Another water wheel and a nice little eating area. Again, these buildings definitely different from the ones before. So let's cross the bridge again and get over to this next side here where we have a nice little Zamperla family coaster, little Ness. And out here we do have the Loch Ness monster, so this is Mama Rias's contribution, I'm almost certain. Pretty cool little structure out there in the lake. So nice simple architecture through here, and then up to the castle itself. You can actually take the lift hill, or the lift that dumps you right on top here, kind of popping out of that hole whenever it comes back up. There it is. Whoop. Pretty neat. Or you can take the super scenic path up here, and this is honestly one of my favorite shots, and it's probably going to be the thumbnail image for this video, since I haven't made it quite yet. But man, look at that. You have this sort of Stonehenge-esque thing, this coaster that really just runs down the landscape with this waterfall all the way down as this pathway winds up. This is the way to do terrain and terrain integration. This looks great. Really, really nicely done. So let's work our way up to the top, and we will pick up this coaster here halfway through. So this is Battle of the Trees. So arrow suspended coasters can be a little bit of a challenge to build sometimes, since they're really kind of flow-based layouts, but I think this one right here is doing really well. You have this giant drop right here, almost reminiscent of Big Bad Wolf, as it swings out and around the Stonehenge building here. We'll interact with this broken wall, kind of through it and over it, up and around, over top of the Rapids ride here. Another little bit on this side as it heads back into the brakes. Now we can stop and take a look at some of the other architecture around here in this little castle courtyard. It's a little bit of a shame that he's run out of map space for it, since I feel like this would be a full kind of four-sided thing. Very neat to see. I love this little garden here in the middle. Nice open space. Lots of little details here, like the bumper cars for training ground. A nice theme. And then we do have the rapids ride that's underneath of here. That is partially trough based, partially in the river, I suppose. Got the little bumpers and things like that throughout, so very nicely done. But the coaster is certainly the star here, and you know, it looks good from the other angles, but clearly it's one of those where you build it for this angle alone, and man, it's certainly is very nice. So I think that is definitely my highlight of the park for sure, which is why we're gonna end with that one. The last little bit here, just a nice little grill here, Starpoint Grill, maybe a reference to this little structure which was used in the Starpoint Park for the bumper cars, I think. So could be a little nod there, as I'm guessing it probably is. Nice little diagonal bridge too. But, you know, we will finish here, zoom out and take a look at the whole thing. A lot of coasters in this park, definitely coaster heavy, which I certainly won't complain about since that's my favorite thing anyways. Pretty decent layouts. A couple of layouts with some pacing issues, and a couple of others that are just good layouts in general. So I like what I saw here. It's a pretty safe park. It doesn't take a whole lot of risks, but I mean, I think sometimes that's really what you're looking for, is just a nice, pleasant park to look at. This kind of gives me some old school vibes to it, so certainly like that. And definitely looking forward to seeing more from Otter, especially if it's going to look like this. So nicely done. Well done on the gold. Congratulations there. And that is it for this one. One more reminder for Angelic Amusement Academy tomorrow, Saturday 10/3 at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And I will also be back with more review videos here coming soon. And as always, if you have requests or things you wish to see, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will add them to the ever-growing list. So until next time, thank you very much for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.